המושב הבא יעסוק באנרגיה כמעצב אסטרטגי של המפה האסטרטגית העולמית. Now it is my pleasure to invite Antonia Dimou, who is the director of the Middle East and Persian Gulf Unit at the Institute for Security and Defense Analysis in Greece. היי. אני מתכבדת להזמין את תת-אלוף במיל, דוקטור אפרים סנה, לשעבר סגן שר הביטחון. בבקשה. אני מתכבדת להזמין את אלוף במיל עמוס גלעד, ראש המכון למדיניות ואסטרטגיה באוניברסיטת רייכמן. את המושב ינחה יעקב כץ, עורך ראשי לשעבר בג'רוזלם פוסט.
Great to be with everyone and to have this great panel with us. We have half an hour, I'm told, to deal with an issue that is really of amazing importance for the world, but definitely for Israel at this moment. And I think that if there were any doubts, the last year and a bit of the war in Ukraine has shown us all how important and vital independent energy power is for a country, and Israel is experiencing this at this moment. And I recommend, if anyone has the opportunity, I did a few months ago, was able to fly to the Leviathan gas rig, which is super cool, so if you can do it. But as a journalist, they took us there. And just to see up close this power and this mammoth of a machine. But we have three panelists with us today. They've been introduced, so I'm not going to do that again, and we can jump right into it. So Antonia, I thought we'd start with you. And I was reading the other day how European natural gas prices have fallen back to their normal trading range for the first time since the war broke out last February in 2022. And I'm curious, from your perspective, or the perch kind of Greece, were you also having some of your own election instability? Maybe our distinguished panelists here can teach you a bit of what it looks like from Israel. But we're not going to get into politics. But as the war does continue, what is the feeling right now in Europe in terms of supply, flow of energy, of gas, and everything else that they might need? Where do they stand at the moment?
Yes. This Mediterranean can play a very increased role in European energy security, as several resources remain untapped, taking into consideration the war on Ukraine that you mentioned, and also Europe's intention to reduce its reliance on Russia. So there are a lot of countries, including Israel, Cyprus, Greece, with some important energy potential. In fact, I'll start with Greece because I know the next two speakers will speak about Israel and the other regional options. So Greece has some very promising gas reserves that are documented in 3D seismic surveys that were conducted back in 2013 in the Ionian Sea and southwest and west of Crete. So the war on Ukraine has triggered a Greek government decision for an action plan that centers on completing those seismic surveys and on drilling in offshore blocks that have already been conceded to oil majors in west and southwest of Crete primarily. Estimates by geologists, petroleum geologists, engineers, and energy experts highlight that there is approximately 10 trillion cubic feet of gas in the Ionian Sea and west and southwest of Crete. Therefore, we have seen that the Hellenic Hydrocarbon Management Authority believes that there's still a time for the development of the natural gas industry in Greece that will benefit Europe as well, taking into consideration the example of the Zohr, the supergiant Egyptian Zohr gas field, whose commercial utilization took less than 2 years since the completion of the seismic surveys. So these are very important and significant prospects. But when it comes to Europe, I would like to highlight Europe's intention to import 10 tons of green hydrogen over the next few years and until 2030. And from today's perspective, this share is expected to further increase. And again, two countries seem to play a very important and very primary role in funneling green hydrogen to the European Union. And that is Greece and Saudi Arabia. White Dragon is a cluster of projects that is about to be executed in Western Greece. It will use large-scale renewable electricity to produce green hydrogen from solar power electrolysis. And the transportation will take place through the TAP, the existing pipeline, and the DESFA pipelines. When it comes to Saudi Arabia, during the last visit of Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to Athens, a project was mentioned where Greece is at its epicenter, and it centers on the export of green hydrogen from the Middle East and North Africa to Europe via Greece. The first large-scale hydrogen project already has started in northwest of Saudi Arabia in an area the size of Belgium. It is the NEOM area where it is declared as an exclusive renewable and hydrogen economic zone. And how transportation, however, will take place from Saudi Arabia to Europe. Well, that would happen through a pipeline network, which, however, is not existent yet. Large-scale production is expected to start back in 2026. So until the overall pipeline network is in place, Greece, again, can play a very important role in transporting green hydrogen to Europe.
Very interesting. Amos, first of all, our host, so thank you very much for the conference. Let's talk about Israel's opportunity here for a moment. There's a lot going on within Israel, a lot of the energy and over 1,000 BCM of gas that have been discovered and Israel's tapping into in all of the different fields. How does this play out on a geopolitical strategic level?
You know, thanks God, I'm not religious, but I do believe in secular miracles. The Arab countries used to be our worst enemies, and we have become partners and even friends. I was involved in it. I cannot imagine when I used to be a long time in the government, I couldn't believe to which level, and of course I'm not mentioning here Azerbaijan, another secular miracle. You know, strategic might relies on military capabilities and wisdom that, strategic capabilities that including political relationship. Now, the fact that we are enjoying independence of supplying natural gas to ourselves, and we can export natural gas to hardcore partners of Israel like Egypt, not like Egypt and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, I think it's enhancing our strategic relationship, that they are pillar in our national security. And here comes another miracle based on what happened in Turkey. We used to be military partners in many areas of Turkey. And one day, all of a sudden, they have changed their mind. I do have some gloomy conclusion. The moment you are dealing with what I call the forces of Satan, like Iran, it's not important whether they are Shiite or Sunnis, extremists, that they really want to exterminate Israel. And they've changed their mind and almost attacked us with Israeli weapon. Can you imagine? And one of the results was that we have developed unbelievable relations with Greece and Cyprus. That for me, it's one security entity, of course, independent states. Antonia, remember, she deserves Medal of Congress in Israel. If there is no medal, such medal, but I'm giving her the medal here because she deserves it. She is one of the smartest human beings I ever met in my life. And she was so instrumental to establish, it was not so easy, security, defense, intelligence cooperation with Greece. Now, if you look at the future, okay, let's assume that we are establishing strategic cooperation about natural gas with Turkey. I think in the democracy of Turkey, Erdogan will be re-elected. That's the image of the democracy there in my eyes. Can you trust them? Can I trust Greece or even Egypt or Jordan? Yes, I do. Yes, I can. I'm not talking again about another example we do have, and I'm so happy, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan, that embodies the new and updated dimension of qualitative relationship. I can rely on them, I can rely on them. So if you take decision to build pipeline to Turkey because it's cost or it's cheaper than other options, it might be the most expensive option. Sometimes in Arabic you say, Rali Rachis or Rachis Rali. It means what is cheap can be very expensive and vice versa. So we are living in a unique era that the natural gas, there was great discussion. I was asked by Prime Minister Netanyahu at the time to testify to the Supreme Court, and I still believe that we have taken the right decision to export natural gas as a tool to enhance our unique relationship with hardcore states like Egypt and Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. You cannot rely only on security. You need to widen the pillars of support and cooperation.
One of the issues, just by the way, that's on the table right now is the idea of expanding Israeli exports, not just using it for domestic, but allowing the providers, the contractors to export more. Very quickly, you're in favor of expanding at the expense of Israel?
Very quickly, I'm supporting. Of course, we need to consider the options not to harm the internal consumption, of course. This is economic and national security. We need to be independent. To be independent in energy, who could imagine in Israel?
Right. Efraim, former Deputy Defense Minister, Minister of Health, and Brigadier General. Israel is, you're looking at this also from a strategic level, and you see some great opportunities, but also for Europe at a point that it has to make a decision. We were talking about that before. What decisions does Europe have to make?
The challenge is to leverage the dependence or the need of Europe in security, in energetic security, to obtain important strategic goals, objectives. And I can count two such strategic objectives. One, to strengthen Egypt, because the Egyptian economy is always on the brink. If Egypt collapses economically, it's a calamity to the region, including Israel, but not only Israel. So it is our common goal to strengthen Egypt, and Egypt should become a preferred source, whatever they have, to Europe, to supply of gas, their own or what they liquefy in Damietta and the other site. This is one strategic goal that can be achieved through energetic operations. The second one is strengthening the East Mediterranean democratic axis. Who are members of the axis? Three democracies: Greece, Cyprus, Israel. And again, if Europe decides to use this axis as a source of energy, and the potential, as Antonia hinted, is beyond what the eye sees now, it can help Europe and it can help the countries, especially the weakest of the three is Cyprus. And Cyprus can be encouraged to be not only a source of their own gas, but a hub for liquefaction. And there is one, I would say, gigantic project, which is the pipeline from East Med to Europe, the Poseidon pipeline. The cost is 6 billion euro, the length 1,900 kilometers. But now, in these very days under discussion, there is a more modest, and that's why more feasible project of connecting the reservoirs of gas in the East Mediterranean, Karish, Tanin, Aphrodita, to Vasiliko in South Cyprus, east to Limassol. It's an area, big area, that the Cypriot government designated to be an area of liquefaction of gas.
An LNG facility.
Yes,
Yeah.
to export the LNG of all the reservoirs in the corner, this eastern corner of the Mediterranean, via Vasiliko to Europe, which is preparing to absorb, to take liquefied gas in several points, more than what they have right now. But it requires a decision, and soon, and the most important, Europe has to decide whom do they want to help. Qatar, Algeria, or Greece, Cyprus, Egypt, and Israel. That's the decision. So there are two projects that are, one of them should be chosen as soon as possible.
Very interesting. Antonia, Efraim mentioned East Med pipeline. What's your take on that, right? We've heard so much about it over the years. There was recently 3 foreign ministers, the Israeli, the Cypriot, the Greek, who met together, said we're moving forward. There's talk of the Italian company and the EU maybe funding it. And is this possible?
Well, the East Mediterranean gas pipeline, it is a project of prime importance for the European Union. To that end, it has commissioned and funded the preliminary study of viability, commercial viability of the project when it comes to its construction. And as you accurately highlighted, there's been a meeting, a high-level meeting between ministers, energy ministers of the countries involved. Well, it is a significant project. However, we have to mention that it will have to cross, it has some technical challenges, I would say, except for the cost.
1,900 kilometers.
Exactly, 1,900 kilometers. And it will have to cross through deep and ultra-deep sea waters. In most of the area in order through mainland Greece to reach Otranto in Italy and then mainland Europe. But there are some other options as well. One of them is the one that was mentioned by Efrem. Last week, the Cypriot president was here in Israel and met with the Israeli premier. And an agreement is in the making for a pipeline, a subsea pipeline that will connect Israel to Cyprus. It's a subsea pipeline, which is, however, cost-effective, and it will transport both ways, either Cypriot gas to Israel and from there for liquefaction at the Idku and Damietta facilities in Egypt, or the other way around, Israeli gas to Cyprus for liquefaction and export to Europe through LNG ships. But again, what is important to highlight is what Efrem said, that Europe has some receiving terminals, but these are not enough to receive the supplies that it needs for the coming years in order to meet its energy needs. Therefore, it should either expand capacity or construct new terminals. Greece follows suit in that direction. For example, the Revithoussa LNG terminal southwest of Athens has expanded its capacity twice in order to receive bigger LNG volumes and to maintain increased LNG capacity in order to safeguard security of gas supply for Europe and, of course, for itself. And I would say one thing which is also very important, taking into consideration the war in Ukraine, that the Revithoussa terminal already receives increased shipments that are funneled to Bulgaria, who has a major problem energy-wise. Why? Because in April 22, Gazprom, Russian major Gazprom, has taken the decision to close the tap, and so it deprived it by 90% of its energy, its gas needs. Nowadays, it receives quantities of between 90,000 to 100,000 megawatt hours of gas through the Revithoussa LNG terminal. And then last but not least, Another terminal is under construction, is going to become operational in December 2023, and that is the floating storage and the regasification unit in the city of Alexandroupolis, northeast of Greece. And it is estimated that it will receive 5.5 BCM of gas annually, and it will be exported to the Balkans, and in particular North Macedonia, Serbia, Bulgaria, and of course including Greece. These are projects of prime importance because they show the strengths and the potential of regional energy cooperation. These projects can alter the energy map of Europe and render Greece an energy hub for the region.
So, and just quickly, with your election situation going on, the East Med partnership that Amos spoke about, the tri-party, and also Efraim mentioned, does it cross party lines no matter what comes out? Like if the current prime minister, he's likely to win again, but let's say it would be the Social Democrats or somebody else. They all support this?
Yes, they're very supportive because that tripartite partnership, of course, with the facilitation of the United States of America, this is something that we should highlight, has gained the support across the political spectrum in Greece. And this is very, very positive because that kind of partnership crosses and serves the national security interests of Greece.
Amos, the gas has been used to also bridge ties between Israel and some of its adversaries. We mentioned Jordan, Egypt, which we've had peace with, but that has close and tightened the relationship. You spoke briefly about Turkey before, but there's also the Karish field, which recently there was a deal that was reached between Israel and Lebanon with American mediation, so not necessarily a direct negotiation between Israel and the Lebanese. Do you see more of that happening in the region to bring these different sides together through energy?
First of all, I think that if we can avoid war, it's better not to have unnecessary war. It's not so genius what I'm sharing with you, but sometimes it happens. So what happened here? Lebanon is constitution without state. That's a tragedy. It's empty suit, nothing there. $1 is equivalent to 80,000 Lebanese pounds. I remember that in the 80s it was $1, 3 pounds. And Beirut looks like, they don't have electricity, food, anything. So what we have done with American mediation, we signed agreement with entity that is artificial, that is called Lebanon, that expired at midnight, the last day of October. If we tried to sign the agreement the 1st of November, we could fail. Why? There was president that disappeared since then, Maronite. Sunai, prime minister, that is not effective, he's paralyzed. And the eternal speaker of the parliament, Nabi Berry, that he's still there. Maybe even if he retires or passes away, whatever, he will continue. Because in Lebanon, you don't have state, so he can continue forever. That's a tragedy. So what we have done, we have signed agreement with Lebanon, with United States. There were some leaders in Israel that considered it or defined it as disaster to Israel, treason. We have given up sovereignty.
Some of them happen to be ministers in the current cabinet of the government, right?
Not only ministers, even more than that.
Even more than
that. I want to keep the
without
respect.
mentioning names. Right.
Without names, it's secret. You can read it in newspapers, however, it's secret. So what we have done, we have signed agreement with this entity that is called Constitution Without State. And afterwards, after we have signed it, they disappeared, the president and the prime minister. There is still no president, but we have saved unnecessary wars that could be very bloody. And based on our judgment, I don't want to say my judgment, we were very close to bloody war with Hezbollah. They were determined to attack us. Now, we can cope with them if we don't have other alternative, but to sign some paper, and the accusation was that we gave up Mediterranean sovereignty. In this area, in the Mediterranean, you cannot find even fish because they have disappeared too, like the president of Lebanon. So what we have given up. So I think it's very clever. Now, if Lebanon, so-called Lebanon, will get potential energy to supply the basic needs to the Lebanese people, believe me, I do support it.
That stabilizes the country. That's an Israeli interest.
Even you, humanitarily speaking. Right. I mean, they don't have food to eat. They don't have electricity. They don't have medicines. It's not far away from here. So I think it's very clever. I would like to take the opportunity to thank United States, Amos Hochstein. We do have the same private name. Maybe it helps. And so altogether, I think it's very clever.
So, Ephraim, one entity that we did not talk about in this whole conversation of energy that is also in the region are a people who are known as the Palestinian people. And I know that you have worked on this in the past, looking at their energy needs and potential sources and how that could be beneficial to their stability and prosperity. So what do you see on that front?
There are two recent developments that can be encouraging, and it's very rare, as you know, in this area. One, that after 23 years, there is a chance that the reservoir of gas 30 kilometers from Gaza, the Gaza Marine, will be exploited, and gas will flow from Gaza Marine to a pipelines hub in El Arish, northern Sinai. So the benefit is, again, another source of gas to Egypt and income to the Palestinian Authority, because they, not Hamas, they own the reservoir offshore Gaza. Not great quantity, 30 BCM, but 30 BCM is, as we say, better than nothing. It's something. Another one is less known. By the way, this is development of the very recent months. Now they're working on it. The IPF, the PIF, Palestinian Investment Fund, the CCC, which is a Palestinian private company, and together with EGAZ, which is the Egyptian energy company. This is the triumvirate of this project. It may help. It is together. Now, people don't know, but Israel develops an oil field northeast of Ben Gurion Airport. Megad field. There are several drilling, and the potential is of many thousands of barrels a day. But it is the current drilling is on the border with the West Bank, on the Israeli side of the Green Line. But the peak of this oil field is not in our side. It is in the West Bank, near the village of Rantis. Part of it is not C area, but B area, where the Palestinians have the administrative rights. If the Palestinians, at last, after many years of procrastination, will start drilling them, they will have a source of income in the West Bank, in B area, and here there is another point. This oil, as well as our oil in the Megad field, cannot be exported but through a pipeline to the refineries in Ashdod. So if there is a pipeline which connects Rantis, Megad, Ashdod, it could be a very useful and profitable cooperation between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. Again, like in Europe, it's a matter of political decision.
Are there not security risks, though, that come with that? From the Israeli perspective, security risks?
Which risk? No risk.
No risk.
I understand a couple of things about security. We can only gain from this. Not lose and not risk anything. Except, people who cannot see that somebody else enjoys. So
that's always going to be a challenge. With that, I want to thank our three panelists for seeing what other opportunities are out there and appreciating what the other side enjoys. So Antonia, Efraim, Amos, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.